Would you like to be somebody who understands the difference between conscious and unconscious attractiveness? Then listen to this entire video where I explain how, as a man, if you are naturally attractive, you just naturally, authentically act out these behaviors, these gestures that seem appealing, especially sexually, for example, then you're more attractive to women in comparison to having loads of knowledge on the psychology of what makes you attractive and all this theory. So before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's get into it. So this is super important to understand the difference because, well, it just gives you an indication of the nature of how women judge attractiveness, really, and how it's a very biological, instinctual process of judging, let's say. So, okay, the difference in there's obviously, I've noticed, I've reflected, and I've realized, I think, that there's a difference in attractiveness between men who are naturally behaving and acting out certain attractive gestures and their looks, whether they're naturally attractive, than men who are super knowledgeable on the psychological theory of attractiveness and how to behave, so women think you're sexy or something. So I talked to a friend a while ago, and he said with his ex-girlfriend that she once asked him, "Oh, are you aware of this certain gesture you do that is super attractive? Like it's really cool, I like it. Are you aware that you do it?" And my friend replied, "Yes, I do it on purpose. Like I'm aware of it." And his girlfriend was kind of not disappointed, but it would have been nicer or cooler or sexier if he would have said, "Oh no, I wasn't aware that I was doing that. That was just my natural me, basically." So here, there's a key difference or seeming difference between naturally acting out something that's attractive because it's just who you are, than acting it out because you want to appear more attractive. You're sort of implementing a kind of theory. Okay, so why is this the case? I have a few potential reasons. I don't know if they're correct, but it's just what came to my mind. So the theoretically knowledgeable guy, so who knows all the theory, might not be acting according to his true authentic self. And women judge your DNA as a man, judge your genes and how they manifest in your behavior, because your genes anticipate you to act out certain things. It's like in your personality, for example. And if you're not acting out your natural self because you have all this theory, but it is sort of dissociated from your authentic self, then it's difficult for a woman to see who you really are. But not necessarily it's difficult, but it's very quick and easy for her to judge that you're not being yourself and you're not actually that attractive as the theory that you're implementing. And the thing is, let's say you were to get together with somebody, and women, I do think tend to judge men based on their ability to stick in a long-term relationship with them and, let's say, raise a family. That's sort of the instinct, let's say. So if you see somebody who's not being themselves, is sort of acting out this theory which is not aligned with their true authentic self, then there's the risk that this person will change in the future. And that's a unwanted prospect for a woman, because that's a risk of that the relationship might break and chaos might arise. Like you're suddenly in a relationship with somebody you don't know, somebody foreign, somebody unknown. So that's why it's unattractive, because you have this risk of bouncing back as a man to your true self, and you'll no longer act out this theory on attractiveness. And women can, I think, instinctively, they detect that, whether a man is being himself or not, or just acting out all this theory on how to be attractive. And all this knowledge might indicate that you seeked out this knowledge on how to be attractive because you wanted to improve your attractiveness as a man. And perhaps you're not the alpha you're presenting yourself to be. So, like, all this theory, this sort of over the top trying to be attractive, indicates that it's actually you're overcompensating something. And if you overcompensate something, the thing you're compensating is in some sense inadequate, or it's sort of subpar, maybe. And that's why women think that, okay, actually, this guy is not authentically as attractive as he presents himself to be. And I like this thought experiment. When you imagine a man who is very physically but also has an attractive personality, then I see a man who is natural and outgoing. And this man does not obsess over the theory on attracting women. He just acts it out in a nonchalant manner, seemingly unconsciously. And then if you'd ask him whether he's aware of his, sexy manner, he'd reply in like a surprised way and sort of as if he wasn't aware of it. And that indicates that this man is, first of all, is naturally attractive. So his genes are kind of like, this is awesome. His genes are inherently attractive. So they're confident, they act out, they're like courageous. And because he's unaware of it, the bridge between his genes and manifesting the actual behavior is very clear. And that means if you were to raise kids with them, the likelihood of them, like your kids' authentic self would be attractive. And that's super valuable. If a woman detects that, that's super attractive. Yeah. So this would signal, if the man replies like, oh, I'm unaware of it, and is sort of humble and maybe downplays it a little bit, it shows that he is acting out his authentic genetic self. And this communication between his genes and his phenotype is fairly clear, and the bridge is direct. So his behavior, his mindset isn't too distorted by his intellect and his own sort of conscious manipulation. So the mind, so what I mean with dissociation here is that you have your authentic self, and then you have all this theory on how to be attractive, which is not actually aligned with who your personality is. So your mind starts to dissociate from the body, from your authentic self. And the thing that drives that dissociation is the intellect, it's the mind, it's the conscious manipulation to try and become and be somebody else. But if the mind is calm and seems grounded, then it's probably more in sync with the person's body and natural self and genes, DNA, basically. And so this dissociation thing is like, it's unattractive because you can tell the guy is not being himself, so there's a risk of that he won't be himself in the future, and the fact that he's not being himself questions you, what's wrong with this guy's authentic self? I think that's what might go on within women when they judge. So the question would be then, okay, but if I'm not that confident myself yet, how do I avoid dissociating but becoming more confident and outgoing? And I think that the trick here is to implement the theory. And that's, of course, didn't I just say, if people implement the theory, then you can tell they're not being themselves? I would say, actually don't implement the theory. Well, it depends what kind of theory. If the theory is grounded in the fundamental biological explanation of why the trait, for example, is attractive, then you can try and get to the root of it and develop that trait, which will then consequentially produce or increase your level of attractiveness. That's the thing. You shouldn't just try to be more good looking. Or confident. You should get the evidence, build a track record of why you're a valuable person, or the cool things you've created, or build that self-love, that self-esteem, that self-value, which will then consequently make yourself more confident and seem more attractive. That's the thing. You need to work on the inner self, work on the body. So if the mind dissociates, you're all over here and your body's here. But if you change your inner self, make yourself more attractive, make yourself more empathetic it's really self-development. And that's not, self-development is not learning a lot of theory and reading a lot of books. It's experimenting and getting out of your comfort zone. It is experiencing. That is self-development. It is not knowledge. It's the unification of body and knowledge, of experience and intellect. That is self-development. And I think that's the way forward. So in conclusion, the reason why natural men who are attractive are more attractive than men who act out this theory on how to be attractive is because women can detect if a man is being himself or not, and if he's not being himself, the woman thinks then, okay, well, this man is jumping around in his personality, in the way he manifests himself in person. There's a risk that he's not going to be like that in the future, because his authentic self is here and his sort of current self is here, and as time moves on, like, this is tense. The fact that he's not being himself is tense, and he will have the proclivity to jump back to himself. So there's a risk of you being in a relationship with somebody you don't know anymore because they suddenly become transformed to their authentic self, which is somebody else who you thought you liked. And also, it indicates, well, if this person is not being themselves, why are they not being themselves? Why is this man acting out of character? It might indicate that his true self, there's something wrong with it, or something that, I don't know, something like that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment below whether you think there are any other reasons why naturally attractive men who just sort of act out this behavior are more attractive than men who sort of try to overcompensate and implement all this theory on attractiveness. Yeah, please leave a comment below. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.